This is an opportunity for you to practice your German translation skills, which is useful for both speaking and writing, of course. And we're going to be translating from English to German, which is the hardest thing to do for a German learner. This is practicing your productive skills rather than your receptive skills, just understanding. And we're going to use the verb essen, the German verb essen, which of course means to eat. And we can see it here, it's in its infinitive form. Look at that en on the end. That's the normal infinitive ending, the base form of the verb in German. And we're going to practice with three different forms of the verb. We have the present tense to start with, then the past perfect tense, and then we're going to practice with infinitive forms as well. Let's start with the present tense. And the first thing to remember with the present tense is that the verb is normal. Ich esse has the normal endings on it, except it's irregular in the du and the er, sie, es forms. Notice that vowel change, an I instead of an E. And that indicates to us as well, it's a clue that in the past perfect tense, we're going to have a different form of the verb than we would normally. We're going to have an en ending in the past participle, but we'll get to that in a second. So, to start off with, we have our forms here. Let's translate number one. I often eat chocolate. So, nice and easy to start with. Ich esse oft Schokolade. And you might like to pause the video before we translate them together to have a go yourself. Look at this translation. Ich esse is the regular ending here. We're not using any of these irregular ones because it's still in the ich form. And the verb's in second position. Look at the English word order. So often in English, and time phrases or frequency adverbs in English often do go earlier than the verb. By often, I sometimes. I never. But in German, of course, the verb always has to go in that second position. So I'm going to highlight it there. The verb's in second. Everything else is going to come next. And in this case, we're going to put the when before the what. So German loves to put that when phrase, the when adverb before the what, the object of the verb. Number two, we eat together in the evenings. Let's have a go at this. Wir essen abends zusammen. Now, again, we've got a slightly different word order here. We've got our en ending for essen, which is we would sort of expect, but we do have, and that's the verb's in second position, but we do have the when, again, before the other adverb. Here it's not when before what, because zusammen is not what, but it's when before another adverb telling us something else. Number three, he eats pizza on Fridays. Isst freitags Pizza. Again, we have our verb. I'm going to highlight the verb. The verb is in second position. We have our when adverb next, and then the what in last position. With all of these ones, we could do the word order slightly differently. So we could put the time phrase first. Freitags isst Pizza. But if we do that, then the verb still has to remain in second position. Number four, when I eat chocolate, I feel sick. Wenn ich Schokolade esse, fühle ich mich schlecht. We could alternatively say, ist mir schlecht. And that has more connotations of being sick, of vomiting. But in any case, look at this sentence. It's an interesting one. We've got a wenn, which is a conjunction. A wenn is a conjunction here. In fact, it's not any old conjunction. It's a subordinating conjunction. What that means is it's starting a sentence which sort of depends on the other sentence. It's subordinate to this main sentence. And that means the verb is going to go to the end. The verb is actually gone to the end. I'm going to highlight it in a different color of that first clause. And if there's a verb at the end of the first clause, then we're always going to put the next verb straight after the comma. So I'm going to highlight those in green just to indicate to you that weird word ending. That's more of an advanced word order rule, but nonetheless it's good to see in the present tense. Let's do the past perfect tense next. And remember, hat gegessen is our past perfect form. Let's do 5, 6, 7. Yesterday I ate too much. Again, you might like to pause before we go through these together, but let's go through them now. Gestern habe ich zu viel gegessen. So in the past perfect tense, which is the normal past tense in German, we need two elements. We need the have and then the ed form. The have is here. It's the first verb in the sentence. And then the second part, which is the ed form, the past participle, we're going to put right at the end of the sentence, gegessen, and I'm going to make that green to indicate that it's in the last position there. Gestern habe ich zu viel gegessen. This morning she ate an apple. So again, we're going to start with the time phrase because the English does. Heute Morgen hat sie einen Apfel gegessen. So let's have a look at this. We've got, again, the auxiliary verb or the helping verb in second position. Notice heute Morgen is one idea. It's two words, but it's one idea. So I'm going to underline it as one idea, which means that hat is still in second position, even though it's the third word. And einen Apfel is the object. It's the accusative case object of the verb eat or has eaten. And so that's why it's got that en ending. It's accusative. And so I'm just going to put that in the notes here. It's accusative, masculine, singular. And then finally, at the end of the sentence, we have our past participle, gegessen. Number 7, they didn't eat anything. Sie haben nichts gegessen. So we're seeing the past participle never changing, and that's because it never does. It never does. In the past participle, it just stays the same. Same in English. Have eaten. Have eaten. And this helping verb, of course, it does change. It changes according to who's in charge of the verb. In this case, it's a they. That's why we've got this en ending, haben in the present tense, used as a helping verb for essen in the past tense. Let's finish with some infinitive forms. So number 8, it's important to eat healthy. Es ist wichtig, gesund zu essen. Now in English we could actually say healthily, use the adverb, but often we just use healthy as an adverb. In German, the adjectives and adverbs are actually usually exactly the same. There's no differentiation. So healthy and healthily is part of a pattern in English where we add this ly at the end to make an adjective and adverb. Think about quick and quickly. So we add this ly to make the adjective into an adverb. But in German, adjectives and adverbs are the same. Are generally in the same form. So you just use your adjective as an adverb. So let's have a look at this. Es ist wichtig. It is important. And we've got a comma here indicating that what's coming afterwards is a zu clause. So in this second clause, there's no one in charge of the verb, is there? And same in English, to eat is just sort of the bare base form of the verb essen. And so we're going to put essen with the zu, to eat. And I'll indicate that with not pink because that's difficult to read, with a different colour. Let's go blue. And sometimes you will have eat in its infinitive form without the zu, but that's going to be with modal verbs. And I think we might actually add one sentence at the end just to show that. Number 11, we'll get to that. But let's have a look at 9 and 10 first. It's worth eating well. Okay, there's this great phrase, es lohnt sich, it's worth it. Es lohnt sich, and after this also follows a zu clause. So es lohnt sich gut zu essen. This zu and the infinitive essen have to come at the end of the clause. So every other bit of information, including gut, or anything else that you wanted to add, would have to go between the comma and the zu essen at the end of the clause. Number 10, I had enough to eat. Let's use the simple past here for the first part of the sentence. Ich hatte genug zu essen. Now, this is actually past tense, but the zu essen belongs to this phrase genug zu essen, enough to eat, which is really a noun in itself, a noun or phrase, enough to eat. And so that comes in a package, and so any tense could go with that. Realistically, we've just got the simple past here. You could have the past perfect, so ich habe genug zu essen gehabt, but the simple past works well. And to finish off with, let's do a modal verb. So I want to eat something. I want to eat something, nice and simple. Ich will etwas essen. Ich will etwas essen. I want to eat something. So in this case, we see essen without the zu, and so it's in its infinitive form, but there's no zu, and that's because after modal verbs, there is no zu before the second verb, unlike most constructions, including words like hope or intend, or all kinds of other phrases that follow with a zu clause. And in this sentence, notice that the first verb is the modal verb. That's in second position. It's got an ending, which is a slightly weird ending because it's a modal verb, but it's got an ending. But the second verb, which is essen in its infinitive form, does not have an ending. That's the whole point of the infinitive. It doesn't have an ending. It doesn't need to, because we already know who's in charge of this idea of wanting to eat.